Look at you, making yourself comfortable. It's fine, there have been dogs up here. So. Oh my god, it's gone crazy! Hi friends, my name is Mayan and I'm a final year vet student at Cambridge, and today I will be discussing some common foods that are poisonous to dogs, and I'll be explaining a little bit behind the mechanisms. So if this sounds like your kind of thing, watch on and subscribe for more content. To clarify, this is just an educational video, and if you are concerned about your pet, if your pet has eaten something you shouldn't have, please go and call your vets. Do not wait and do not do more googling, because the earlier your pet goes to the vet, the earlier the vet can make a diagnosis and start treatment, and better chances for your pet to recover. So yeah, go and see a vet. Anyway, so the first very common one is most people probably know is chocolate. So chocolate is very nice for humans, but it's very bad for dogs. Why is that? So chocolates contain methyl-xanthines, which are chemical compounds that are like stimulants. So you have your theobromine and your caffeine. So chocolate contains a high percentage of theobromine and some caffeine. So these stimulants will act on the body's central nervous system, cardiovascular system, respiratory system, and they also have a diuretic effect. So in humans, theobromine metabolizes faster for like 2-3 hours, so we get it out of our system really quickly. But in dogs, it takes up to 18 hours and it metabolizes way slower. That's why it's more toxic to dogs. So theobromine competitively inhibits adenosine receptors, which lead to central nervous system stimulation, diuresis, and tachycardia, which is like a faster heart rate. So besides that, it also increases your intracellular calcium ions by increasing your calcium entry, and this ultimately leads to increased strength and contractility of your skeletal and cardiac muscles. And also it inhibits phosphodiesterases, which will result in an increase in CAMP levels, which will ultimately increase your heart contractility and your heart rate. Think it's something. So theobromine has a similar chemical compound as caffeine. So think of the symptoms that you get when you are like very caffeinated. You get like fast heart rate, you like get more, you feel like adrenaline and stuff, because methyl-xanthines also increase circulating noradrenaline and adrenaline levels. So this basically will cause the animal's body system to go into overdrive and lead into clinical signs ranging from mild signs such as like vomiting, diarrhea, polydipsia, which means you tend to drink more water, to more severe signs such as irregular heartbeats and seizures, and more severe signs, death. So as methyl-xanthine is the toxic component in the cocoa plant, dark chocolate contains a higher percentage of theobromine, followed by milk chocolate and white chocolate. So the severity of the toxicity thus depends on the type of chocolate that your dog consumes and the weight of your dog. So a heavier dog would be able to tolerate a higher percentage of theobromine. But technically, as a responsible owner, you shouldn't be feeding your dog chocolate at all. There is a calculator online where you can calculate the risk of toxicity in your dog and like how much chocolate your dog has consumed. As theobromine and caffeine have similar chemical structure, they are methyl-xanthines, it goes without saying that you shouldn't let your dog drink coffee, tea, or energy drinks. So the second common foods that most people may not know, you shouldn't feed your dog grapes and raisins. So I'm sorry, I know you look very interested, but no, not for you. Ingestion of grapes and raisins can result in acute renal failure in some dogs. In some dogs, they are not affected by this. No one really knows the mechanisms behind it yet, but a study has shown that raisin extracts can cause damage to dog kidney cells in vivo. Primary injury appears to be the proximal renal tubular epithelium, and the onset of renal failure can occur within 72 hours of ingestion, so within the first 3 days of ingestion. And how much does it take to kill a dog? Well, there's been reports of as few as 4 to 5 grapes causing death in an 8-kilogram dog. So in short, don't risk it, don't feed your dogs grapes or raisins. And if they do, quickly bring them to the vet so that they can induce vomiting in the dog to get rid of the grapes and the raisins. So what kind of signs would you expect to see in these dogs? You would expect to see vomiting or diarrhea within 6 to 12 hours of ingestion. You can also see lethargy, so like looks very tired, anorexia, not eating, abdominal pain, so like if they look like they're not as active as usual, or they'll just like hunch in the corner and not wanting to interact. weakness, and tremors. So basically, bring your dog to the vet ASAP to induce vomiting and have supportive treatment if needed. So the third thing that I want to talk about is xylitol, which is an artificial sweetener used in like chewing gum and also some types of peanut butter. So most mammals, like us humans, we can consume xylitol, but in dogs, xylitol causes a rapid insulin release from the cells, which can result in profound hypoglycemia, which means it lowers the blood sugar levels in your dog's body quite significantly. So signs of hypoglycemia, which is signs of low blood sugar levels, will be seen within 30 minutes of ingestion or up to 12 to 18 hours of ingestion. So you would expect to see vomiting, weakness, and ataxia, which is uncoordinated gait, your dog is like not walking properly, depression, and even seizures. Besides that, xylitol can also cause liver injury, but these signs may not occur until 1 to 2 days after eating. So you could see depression, vomiting, icterus, which is like jaundice, so like yellow color eyes and yellow mucous membranes. So basically try to keep these items away from your dogs, and if they have consumed them, bring them to the vet. The next thing I want to talk about is allium species plants. That's not good for you. Which are your onions, garlic, shallots, so tasty in Chinese cooking especially, but they are very toxic to dogs because they contain sulfoxide and disulfide compounds. They cause oxidative damage to the red blood cell membranes of your dog, which leads to methemoglobin and Heinz bodies, which basically just you damage your red blood cells and you have less red blood cells that are functional, so you get hemolytic anemia. So you basically get a type of anemia. So what types of onions and garlics, in particular, any sorts, so like fresh, dried, raw, cooked, or crushed, they have all shown to be potentially toxic. So the signs you would expect to see is vomiting, diarrhea, and anemia, discolored urine, weakness. So keep your onions and garlics away from your dog, especially when cooking in the kitchen. You know, when you have tendencies to drop these things on the floor and then the dog just swoops it all up. Yeah, beware about that. The next thing I want to talk about is bread dough made with yeast. So bread dough, if consumed by the dog, it can cause gastric distension, metabolic acidosis, and central nervous system depression. And so how does it cause like gastric distension, like bloatingness in the stomach? Is because your stomach, a dog's stomach, anybody's stomach, is warm, moist, which is the perfect environment for replication of yeast in the dough. So as the dough expands, it causes the stomach to distend and it can occlude certain vessels. So something similar to a GDV, which is gastric dilation volvulus, which is another condition that we see in particular deep-chested dogs. We're not going to talk about that today. Anyway, so with sufficient gastric distension, it can cause respiratory compromise as the stomach compresses upwards to diaphragm. It's very uncomfortable. Besides that, yeast fermentation products are ethanol, type of alcohol, which is absorbed into the blood, and it can cause inebriation and metabolic acidosis. So early signs, you can see unproductive attempts at vomiting, abdominal distension, suddenly they've got like a huge belly, and depression. And as ethanol intoxication develops, the animal can become ataxic, which is like discoordinated gait again, like, and depression. So the death of the dog usually occurs due to the alcohol effects rather than the distended abdomen. So basically, you don't want to feed them bread dough and you don't want to feed them alcohol. And other things to avoid, things that can get stuck in the gastrointestinal tract of your dog. For example, like bones. I know a lot of people tend to think that, oh yeah, feeding a dog a bone like a chicken bone is totally fine, but there comes a risk if your dog does not chew it properly or like just swallows it whole. It will get stuck in places, and you do not want it to get stuck in places because you have to bring it to the vet and then you have to undergo a surgery to remove it. So other things are like corn in a cob. You want to feed it corn, just remove the corn. Don't feed it the whole thing. So yeah. Obviously, there are loads more toxic foods that you should watch out for your dog. I've put some resources down below. I didn't talk about all of them because this video would be too long otherwise. And I hope it was helpful, or at the very least entertaining, and enjoy some shots of the lovely pug that I met yesterday.